Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome you to the District of Sechelt Special Committee of the Whole meeting. This is Wednesday, March 31st, and it is 3:04 p.m. I'd like to acknowledge that we're coming to you from the Sechelt and Squamish Nation territories. And we have an agenda in front of us. Are there any additions or deletions to this agenda? Mr. Douglas, did you have another item to add to the agenda? Or you're just going to bring it up as part of the agenda items that we have?
It'll be part of the sewer presentation.
Thank you. All right, so we have an agenda. I'd look for a motion to adopt the agenda as presented. Moved and seconded, all in favor? Thank you. And Mr. Douglas. No, actually, over to Ms. Paulson first.
Hi.
Hello.
I wanted to start off, thank you, Mayor Seegers. I wanted to start off by thanking Council for providing us with the opportunity for the district to implement what is probably the most robust public participation program for the budget, at least in the last 5 years since I've been here. We have provided more opportunities for our citizens to ask questions, discuss budget topics, and engage with Council than ever before. And with that, I will share my screen.
Thank you.
Can you see the presentation okay?
I can, and hold on 1 second. There's a comment here that indicates that someone cannot get access to the YouTube, so I'm going to leave that for Jennifer. Thank you. All right, go forward.
Okay, thank you. So our engagement strategy this year was designed to, designed to address, in the past, we've always had quite low turnout at public meetings. So we were wondering if there were other ways to engage them electronically, especially in this last year with the pandemic, to see if we could get more people engaged. So with that, we've tried to provide as many opportunities as possible for citizens to provide input and ask questions. We used as many different types of platforms as we could while abiding by provincial health regulations. And ensuring, one of the other goals was to ensure Council received all the input from members of the public before finalizing the budget. Our strategy involved sharing information, receiving questions and comments, as well as engaging in dialogue. So to date, we've had 2 radio ads, 4 ads in the local papers, 3 listings in the municipal memos in the local papers, 2 news releases, 2 alerts have gone out through our Sechelt Citizen app, which is also used for the garbage and recycling updates and is received by 1,321 subscribers. We have put out 29 social media posts that have reached over 16,000 people. Well, I should say 16,000 views. We currently are running 11 web pages that have our budget information posted, and those have received 710 hits since December 17th, 2020, when they were launched. 5 presentations have come forward to Committee of the Whole meetings, and those recordings are still available on YouTube for anyone who missed them. Slides can be found at sechelt.ca/budget. We have launched 6 surveys. They were available online as well as paper copies at the library. All of the community associations were contacted in November and had provided feedback either verbally or by email. And that information was presented to Council on the November 25th Committee of the Whole meeting. 7 public participation sessions via Zoom have been planned. To date, we have conducted 6 of those, with our latest being Monday, March the 29th was the 7:30 p.m. evening session. They have not been well attended. We've had about 10 members of the public in total join all 6 meetings so far. And there have been, as of March 25th, when our agenda was published, there were 182 views on the YouTube recordings, which is an average of about 36 views per session. Our final public participation session will take place on Tuesday, April the 6th, after the long weekend at noon. So we encourage as many people as possible, if they have any questions or want to provide suggestions and engage with council before budget decisions are being made, that is a great opportunity to do that. We have included 6 different ways for the public to ask questions, including email, phone, regular letter mail. We've got the online form on our website, the For the Record page, also the public participation sessions, and of course, following every public meeting is a question and answer period where the public are able to join via Zoom and ask questions that way as well. So the timeline for the budget engagement follows closely with the finance department timeline. Basically, as soon as they have data and reports ready to go, we are communicating those and engaging as soon as we can. So the timeline actually starts the year before. So this budget started in August of 2020, where staff are establishing the base operating budgets for the following year. And the base operating budget basically includes all of the services that the municipality provides at the standard service levels. Added to that would be any new operating expenses, and one-time expenses are also identified at that time in case changes to service levels might need to be considered by council, or if there have been cost increases due to rising costs of materials, wages, utilities, or other factors. Capital budget requests and business cases are also prepared over the summer, and then those are reviewed internally by staff in the weeks following. Between September and October, staff meet and collect budget requests from the community associations. Some of those, as I mentioned, were done through meetings and some by correspondence this year. And then the draft budget request for the community associations was presented in November. Starting in December, we kicked off the public engagement process by updating our website content, news releases, radio ad. We launched one survey, that was the sewer survey, came out December 17th, and we had one social media post to announce that as well. Continuing into 2021, we started off January with some council workshops, giving council an opportunity to take a step back. Take a step back and look at big picture strategic priorities as they approach the budget deliberation process. And then the January Committee of the Whole meeting started the first presentation with sewer system operational and capital budget requests. February and March have been busy months for all of us. Operational and capital budget requests for all departments have been presented to council, and we have launched 4 more surveys, conducted 6 public participation sessions, and also had, that includes 4 daytime sessions and 2 evening opportunities for the public to participate. We also had another ad in the paper, news release, 17 social media posts, and then for April, as I mentioned, will be the final public participation session, which of course will be promoted through social media. And we will do another news release when the final budget information is ready to come forward. Going into April, ongoing budget deliberations will continue, and all decisions will be made, of course, before the May 15th legislated deadline for the adoption of the 2021 budget and 5-year financial plan. So this is what we heard, priorities that were communicated from the public, and a lot of these came through themes from the surveys and some of the questions we had received by email. A lot of the open-ended comments on our surveys definitely communicated some of these. One of the biggest ones was the importance of protection of our infrastructure and municipal assets. Innovative cost savings approaches. There were a lot of really great ideas communicated through our surveys, particularly parks, some in public works, as well as protective services. So those have been received by our staff, and we'll definitely see how we can integrate some of those into our operational processes. Long-term planning was another big one that's important to our community. Road safety, of course, is critical. Improvements for public spaces such as playgrounds, parks, trails, and beach accesses came across really clearly as an important one, especially through the parks survey as well as the arts and culture survey. Taking advantage of grants to reduce the need for tax increases as much as possible was definitely a strong theme. And delaying projects that are not critical to reduce the need for tax increases. As we know, many of our citizens are on fixed income or different ends of the economic spectrum. So we want to make sure to take that into consideration as well. So the 6 surveys that we launched started with the sewer system survey in December, followed by parks, public works, arts and culture, planning and development, and protective services. And the objective of the surveys was to allow citizens to identify service areas that are important to them, as well as providing an opportunity for members of the public to provide their input for council's consideration during the budget process. A total of 410 responses were received from all 6 surveys. Survey responses were limited to 1 per IP address. However, the number of respondents for each survey represents less than 1% of Sechilt's population. So although there's some great ideas and themes from our citizens here, they should not be considered statistically significant. As you can see from this chart, the parks survey received the most responses with 125, followed by arts and culture and the sewer system. Looking at the sewer survey, some of the main themes that came forward, I'll just review some of the main themes that came forward. And again, that survey was open from December 17th to March 19th and received 87 responses. So when asked if Sechelt needed a publicly accessible sani station for motorhomes and campers to dispose of sewage, 77 were in support of a sani station, which is great news because we received an announcement on Friday that we have received a grant to cover the cost of the new sani station. When asked if they would be willing to contribute money to support a district-wide sewer expansion program, 30% of the respondents indicated that they would be willing to pay $166 per year or more. 40% of the respondents said they would prefer not to consider sewer expansion programs for 2021, which includes 26% who felt that it should not be considered in the 5-year financial plan at all. When asked if they would be interested to find out how much it would cost to produce and distribute reclaimed water that could be used for outdoor watering of lawns and gardens, pressure washing, 62% agreed or strongly agreed. Moving over to our park survey, this one was launched January 12th and was open until March 19th. 78% of respondents were in favor of the existing service levels for maintenance of our gardens, hanging baskets, planter boxes, community art, and other decorative features in our public spaces. Along with this question was an open-ended text field that received 60 comments and suggestions on how we can further improve our parks and public spaces, including several on increasing the number of garbage cans, frequency of litter cleanup, and several comments on improving sidewalk and crosswalk safety. When asked for ideas on how we can reduce the amount of garbage, vandalism, and graffiti in our parks, which has been a growing issue in the last couple of years, 74 comments were received, including suggestions to increase signage, increase fines, add surveillance cameras, as well as several suggestions to add more staff to do litter pickup, bylaw patrols, and enforcement for littering. So lots of ideas on how we can improve our public spaces. Looking at playgrounds, Hackett Park was the most well-used playground, with 55% of the respondents indicating that they use Hackett Park, followed by Friendship Park at the Trail Bay Pier with 32%. 41% of the respondents for this survey do not use Sechelt playgrounds at all. And 23% were not in support of increasing taxes as a way to fund playground upgrades. When asked if they played court sports, 54% of the respondents indicated that they play pickleball, 22% played tennis, and 12% played basketball. When asked about improvements or additional courts in the future, 79% of the respondents said yes, with 46 individual comments to suggest that more pickleball courts in particular were needed. It is a rising sport in North America right now. Another question for the park survey was about lights and decorations, and 71% of respondents said no to more lights and decorations. They were satisfied with the amount that we currently have. The Public Works Survey was open from February 1st to March 19th and received 37 responses. The survey included 21 questions to gather feedback from community members on roads, drainage, sidewalks, wharfs, community facilities, and other services. When asked if there were areas where more pedestrian-controlled crosswalks were needed, 62% of respondents said yes, with the suggested locations both being on Highway 101. One at Torito and one at Torito and Trail Avenue, and the other at the Davis Bay waterfront. Both of those were areas that Council had recently discussed with Ministry of Transportation as needing improvement in terms of crosswalk safety and just general safety improvements there. When asked about priorities for paving, 89% of respondents felt that downtown laneways and other gravel roads should not be a priority over other areas. 95% of respondents were satisfied with the current level of service for snow removal, which is great to hear. I know our crews take that very seriously and have been doing a really great job with that. 67% of respondents had indicated that the current level of maintenance for ditches and road right-of-ways was satisfactory in their opinion. And 80% felt that their street was lit well enough. We had another question on dark skies preferences, and it's good to see that the majority were happy with the current level of lighting in their neighborhoods. The Arts and Culture Survey was open from February 4th to March 19th and received 96 responses. The survey included 15 questions to receive input on local cultural places within the District of Sechelt, events and priorities for district-funded arts and culture programs, as well as barriers that might limit people from attending or participating in arts and cultural activities. Some of the top priorities for respondents were libraries, as well as festivals and events, and funding for community arts organizations was another big one. When asked about the barriers that might be preventing our residents from, or our citizens from attending local arts and culture activities, the two biggest were either that they weren't interested in what was on offer or poor marketing. In other words, they didn't know about the event. However, cost and timing were also a factor for some. When asked what other arts and cultural amenities Sechelt needs, some of the main themes were to increase the representation of Shishal and Indigenous arts in Sechelt. 12 respondents suggested improvements to outdoor public spaces. 10 suggested a new indoor cultural facility, such as a large-scale performing arts theater. And 5 respondents felt that the funding for arts and culture would be better spent in other areas. Looking at the Planning and Development Survey, this one was open from February 11th to March 19th and received 21 responses. Considering that an extensive community consultation process is already underway to gather feedback on the proposed zoning bylaw changes, the budget survey for the planning department included 5 questions intended to collect input on preferences relating to staffing for planning and development in Sechelt for council's consideration. Some of the general comments received were suggesting that council wait for the Sunshine Coast Regional District to establish a stable water supply to meet regional growth expectations before allowing more development in Sechelt. 72% believe that developers should contribute to affordable housing, while 28% believed that affordable housing should come from senior levels of government or housing societies. When asked if they supported consistent building design themes in the downtown core, 37% said yes, with 63% preferring that building owners provide their own design ideas. And looking at the building permitting process, 19% of respondents were in favor of increasing property tax to add revenue for the purpose of streamlining the district's building permit process. That would be by adding more staff in that area. 52% were not in favor of the increase, and 29% preferred that permit holders cover these costs. Looking at the protective services survey, when asked what should be the most important priorities for district bylaw enforcement officers, the monitoring and cleanup of illegal dumping was number 1, with neighborhood noise as number 2. While the following issues were also areas of concern, including investigating dog complaints, backyard burning, property maintenance, parking and abandoned vehicles, and support and education for provincial health orders. Also received responses. 68% of survey responses reported that they believed the busiest hours for bylaw enforcement officers would be after 4:30 p.m. on weekends. When asked I just mentioned that one. Looking at the RCMP services, according to the survey respondents, the average level of satisfaction for RCMP online crime reporting system was 74%, and the average level of satisfaction for wait times on the non-emergency line was 50%. Customer service from the RCMP in general was rated at 80%. And that brings us to the end of the summary for the public participation results. And thank you to everyone who shared their thoughts and questions for council.
Thank you. Before we go to council questions, I'd look for a motion to receive the report. Moved and seconded, all in favor? Thank you. Now, any questions for Ms. Polson or comments? Okay, I'll have to say I was impressed by the numbers. I've been around here for 9 years now. I just figured that out. I've been here 9 years, and I don't think I've ever seen as many people take part in, even viewing our sessions. We've had people come in person to some of our council sessions before, and I think the most we've ever had is about 20 people. So the interaction that we've gotten, the response that we've gotten for the first year that we've done this, I think is phenomenal. I know it's been a lot of work, and I want to just thank you for all the effort that all of you put in, on you, Carrie Ann, and the finance department. I know it's a lot of work. So thank you to everybody.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments by council? All right, and we have one final session on April 6th at noon, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. All right, seeing no further questions, we will move on. Thank you again. Mr. Douglas, over to you.
Thank
We're
you.
looking at item 5.1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. It's all you.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to share my screen for a presentation.
Thank you.
So the purpose today is to go through the sewer operating and capital, hoping for the final time, make some either recommendations or make some suggestions to this budget so that we can move forward and work towards the bylaws and have them ready for council and a upcoming council meeting. So once again, this is our sewer area that we're talking about in the pink color. So this is the 2021 budget with the items we've talked about to date. This includes the stuff we've reviewed at a previous meeting. We have suggested an increase, which we'll go through in a few minutes. We've included some one-time and ongoing costs, and those are all included here. And currently, the budget would show that there's a $632,000 surplus or $632,000 available for capital purchases. And just remember that number because it's an important number. We'll see it again when we get to capital. So just breaking this down into a little bit easier format for everybody. This is sewer consolidated operating fund. This includes the revenues that were shown on the previous page, but just in a easier format. Expenses, net operating activity, which is the area just below the expense area. The transfers in debt and amortization, and showing that surplus of $632,000. So this is just the sewer and collection. This is just the sewer, the collection and treatment area for operating. We have promised council that we'll show everything septage separate from sewer, which would be collections and treatment. And so this would just be that area. The revenues that we're suggesting, 3.7 million. Expenses of 2.5 million, and transfers and debt 562,000, and which would show the surplus of 632. So we know that from seeing this that the surplus is being created from the collections and treatment area of this budget. When we move over to the septage side of it, we're looking at the revenues of 730, expenses of 283,000. The 446 is essentially a transfer to a reserve, which is, and then shows a zero surplus, zero deficit. So we're balanced in the area of septage with these financial transactions. So once again, just reviewing what's included in the first sheet that we saw there. We have all these one-time and ongoing costs that have been included. These are important things to take care of to keep the maintenance level up on the Water Resource Center, where most of this is being spent. Additionally, we have the septage area also has some one-time costs, and I've circled the first one, and that's because this is the only item not included in the budget at this time. We've tried to get a hold of the haulers to find out, by funding this with additional fees would be acceptable to them. We haven't heard back, so we're just going to pull this out for now, and if we're able to achieve a discussion, then we'll bring that back through creating the bylaws and for council. The other area at the bottom is other one-time costs that are included into the sewer budget as well. Additionally, on your page 31 of the agenda, we have a snapshot of the 5-year capital plan. Of course, you know, the most important part to this plan is the first year, and we're going to go through that in detail in a couple minutes. But it's important that we do show that we do have a longer range plan, and that the plans, you know, mean something. It also shows things that we have to save for down the road that are going to be coming up. In this 5-year financial plan, we have at least 2 other lift stations that need to be rebuilt, and you know, we need to make sure we have the money in place or the plans in place to deal with that. We have the Wakefield lift station in here, and on the second sheet we have the McKenzie lift station. And they're not cheap. They are close to $1 million to rebuild these plants. Included in the table below is the funding sources over the 5 years. And of course, we have a septage area. And on your sheet, the pink area there that I've got highlighted probably shows the capital reserve, but it is not being funded from there. It is being funded from the septic reserve. So I apologize for any confusion there. As you can see in the funding below, that, you know, the sewer capital reserve has nothing being funded there. It's all being funded from the septic reserve. And then in the yellow box at the bottom is a summary of both consolidated septage and sewer and where the funding is coming from. So looking at greater detail, the first year's part of the plan, we have $2.2 million for sewer capital expenditures. The project includes the Wakefield lift station, which we've applied for a grant for. We've discussed this prior, that if we don't get the grant, we will come back to council to recommend alternative funding sources. This is a project that really does need to be done sooner rather than later. We know that they're evaluating the grant application at this point, and so we hope to hear in the near future what's going to happen with that. The Trail Avenue Force Main is a continuation project from last year. There's just a very little, just over $22,000 left to spend there. Additional membranes, we have it's also a carryover project for $96,000, and we're adding another $96,000 this year, subject to the findings from the work we've been doing on our treatment facility. Valve cluster replacement, once again, that's a carryover project from last year that was approved. There's $24,000 remaining on that project. And then we get into what I would say the newer projects for this year. We have the water resource chemical storage facility for $350,000, ultrification unit replacement for $250,000, spare pump for $10,000, lift station telemetry for $122,000. We're embarking on a maintenance hole replacement plan. It's a multi-year plan at $460,000, but the first year is 3 maintenance holes to the tune of $150,000. Sewer outfall, we need to be it's once again a multi-year project starting at $20,000 this year and would be increased next year, would be the remainder. The sanitary sewer maintenance hole, this is a project that was previously approved by council, and that is 3 maintenance holes on Trail Avenue for $171,000. And this one is new. We discussed at the last meeting that we have wastewater meters that we need to replace or upgrade or to make sure that they're working, and that's for $45,000. So total sewage projects, sewer projects of $2.2 million that we'll be looking to include in the budget. This would be the funding for those projects. Overall development cost charges, 252,000, gas tax reserve, 171, grants and contributions, 638,000, MFA financing at 350,000, sewer capital reserve, 189,000, and sewer user fees, 632,000. So that's the number that I was wanting everybody to remember from the sewer part of the sewer the consolidated plan. It showed a surplus of 632. We're intending to spend those funds on capital in 2021. Over to the septage side, we have a few items we need to move forward on. We have solids drying on the ground up at the Dusty Road treatment facility that we want to dispose of. We're estimating that to be 500,000. We want to work on a septage closure plan. If we are looking to close that in a number of years from now, 2031. And what would it look like, if we did that? And then roof replacement at Dusty Road, and once again, that's not sewer user fees, that's all septic. And then the funding source here is 678,000 from the sewage for septic reserve. So now we're just going to review some of the reserves that are associated with the sewer fund. In 2020, we had a $212,000 surplus that is going to roll into the sewer surplus. Gives us a total balance there of $397,000. We're not recommending spending that. The money is the surplus in this reserve, in this operating fund, is very low. I would say, a recommended balance from the director of finance would be, minimally $750 to $1 million should sit here in case of an emergency, in case something comes up. We do need to have some funds set aside for those purposes. Public Works Yard Reserve, it is associated with the sewer reserve. However, we didn't talk about where those monies are going to be spent, but those monies are intended to be spent this year on the operations building. So we'll talk about that also when we go through the general operating fund. Future capital reserve, future maintenance reserve, we call it here, or capital reserve. We have an amount of $157,000 in it. We're looking through this budget to contribute another $38,000 to the capital reserve, and then we're planning to spend $189,330, which estimated end of year balance would be $6,710. As you can see, this isn't a capital reserve that has a lot of spare money in it. It's very tight. We kind of make it from year to year, but we're not saving for those bigger projects down the road, which is a concern. And we need to get there in the future where we're able to put money aside into this reserve and not spend it in the current year. As I indicated, we have two big rebuilds coming. One of them is right now going to be under grant, and the other one, we're hoping to have some money here in this fund for that purpose. Septage reserve started last year. We transferred $335,000 to the reserve. It's at the balance, and we're estimating we'll transfer $411,000 into this year. Spend $678,000 of that on the septage expenses or project. and leaving a balance of 68,000. Let's see. And then the sewer reserve for committed expenditures. This is for two items. One, when we have carryover projects from one year to another, we transfer money in to carry it over the year end. And this is the area we're going to be accumulating some of those ongoing costs that come up every 3 to 4 years. So like the light bulb, UV light bulbs, the transfer would sit in this account until we needed it to replace those bulbs. So at this point, $34,000 is anticipated to sit in this reserve and accumulate over a number of years, waiting for that expense to happen. And then Community Works Reserve, which is most people know as a gas tax reserve. Yes, we can utilize these funds here in this reserve. We are anticipating spending some of these funds in the sewer area, and so that number is included here in the withdrawal. I think the 171 was supposed to be for the Community Works Reserve Fund. So that's just a misalignment. And then the last one is sewer DCCs. When we saw this last time, we had 0 in the additions. And so I just bumped it up a bit to reflect that we do get annual contributions. We don't know what those are going to be year to year. It's all dependent on development. And so I put a nominal amount here. I mean, it could be as high as 250,000 if there's a lot of development. However, we anticipated that to be heavier last year, and it was not. So we have to be very cautious at how we, estimate these revenues from DCCs, because we need to plan for some, yes, but we also need to plan that this reserve will stay healthy and available for when we need to do the capital work. So the increase that we'd be looking at to fulfill this budget would be residential user fee increase of $113. So that would move the user fee from $494 to $607. The seniors apartment rate would go from $304 up $70 to $374. The commercial rate would bump up by $239 annually to $1,280. Also being recommended that the parcel taxes remain at $274. So now this slide, which is page 35 of your agenda, is everything in. We put all one-time costs in, we put all the ongoing costs in, we put the capital and all its funding in here. And you can see that, it shows a 0 balance at the end, so it's a balanced budget. The capital amount, $2.9 million for 2021. Once again, some of that is under grants, a little bit of borrowing, and the use of reserves. So I've broken this again down into just a simpler format. So this is the consolidated that we just looked at. Total revenues 5.3, expenses 2.8, leaving $2.5 million to deal with capital and transfers. 373 net. This is a net number, net transfers, and 2.9 million of capital, which is zero. Then we go into the sewer area, which is the collections and treatment. And these are the revenues associated with just the collections and treatment, 4.6 million, 2.5 million in expenses, leaving just over $2 million for capital and transfers and debt. Capital in the sewer area of 2.23 million with a zero surplus, zero deficit, so it's balanced. And septage, the same thing, revenue 730, costs 283, transfers, debt 231, capital of 678, leaving zero there as well. So as a conclusion, the sewer fund still is a bit underfunded. As we're not building reserves, we're kind of making it from year to year. Number of projects that need to be completed are included in this year's budget. The proposed increase of $113 to sewer user fees to pay for the necessary work. That's 2.9 million capital projects planned, and the addition of 1 part-time staff for the Water Resource Center is included in the budget. We have one final ask that the Committee of Whole recommends to Council that we get early approval on 2 items within the sewer project list, and that would be the Water Resource Center chemical storage facility for $350,000 and maintenance full replacement for the $150,000. And that's so we can get if we have one consultant and one contractor dealing with 6 manholes or maintenance holes at one time, that works really well. So if we got early approval, we might be able to do all 6 at the same time rather than doing 3 now and 3 in the fall. And that's all I have.
Thank you. So Council, any questions or comments? Councillor Lamb.
I was just wondering, so we don't have this flow meter that works between the Seashell Nation and the district. That's not working properly yet. So is there an increase in their fees for this year? How are we going to deal with that?
So we've put aside $45,000, which if we went all new, I believe it would cost close to 90. And so we're looking at this as a shared expense. It could be a little bit less if we are just supplying, say, power to the one unit that's there that keeps running out of power. And it's being recommended that it's funded from fees and user fees.
I guess hard to believe that somebody wouldn't understand my question, but it's cool. But no, I'm just kind of wondering, like a user fee is going up, I think you said 23 or 27%. And so is would the fee to the nation be going up the same, or will it be different?
It was the same last year, so that would be the intention.
So you're saying it will go up this year based on the fee?
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Any other questions and comments? Councillor McLean.
Yeah, so I'm good with most of the work that's been proposed here. I think the sewer service has a lot of work that we need to do and a lot of things that need addressing. So I'm pleased that we're looking at a lot of that. However, the increase I have a bit of a challenge with. $113 is a flat rate increase. So it's going to increase the same amount for a house that's worth $400,000 as one that's worth $4 million. Whereas property taxes scale depending on the value of your house. So that is a concern for me, and I'd like to look at ways that we can mitigate that increase and make it a little easier for residents. And one thing I would like to do is look at the gas tax. The federal government has made indications that they would like to double the gas tax this year. So what I'd like to do is put some of that money towards our sewer service. So that way it just lowers this increase a little bit and covers some of the capital costs. So in particular, what I looked at within the sewer capital plan, there are two projects I'd like to tag with gas tax or community works fund. And that is the Water Resource Center chemical storage facility and the maintenance hole replacement. So that's the second maintenance hole on Mermaid. I'd like to see both of those funded by the gas tax or the community works fund. So to that extent, I'm going to make a motion for each of those, and we can hopefully discuss them and get a little feedback from staff as we go. So I'm going to start with the maintenance hole. I'd like to make a motion that pending confirmation from the...
Yeah, we don't have confirmation on that yet. So go ahead. You got it.
Pending confirmation from the federal government, be it resolved that the 2021 maintenance hole replacement project be funded by the Community Works Reserve.
So that you're looking at the 150,000. So you notice that the 171,000 is already covered by, right, gas tax reserve.
Yep.
Okay. So is there somebody to second the recommendation?
I'll second it.
Okay, seconded. All right. Any questions, conversation, comments? Mr. Douglas, you were going to say something.
Just, your worship, you'd...
The pending piece?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Do we have a timeline by when we anticipate we're going to hear about that?
Going through the press release, I didn't see a time frame, but it's going to be associated with the federal budget. So as that progresses, we'll watch that as that goes through.
Okay, that's going to be April sometime.
Okay.
Yeah, I did get a date a while back at one of the meetings I had.
The other item would be is if we did not receive the double gas tax, how would we look at funding?
Okay, and when would the sewer user fee bylaw come forward at the same time as our budget? Or
yeah.
Okay, so we would have until May 15th basically to pass all of them.
Correct. So the intention right now would be the first meeting in May would be where all our bylaws would come through for first reading. And the intention would be to have a special council meeting to adopt them.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councillor McLean.
Just real quickly, the federal budget is proposed to be tabled on April 19th.
Okay. I think the provincial one is April 19th as well. Like, that's where I got the date. It's in April too. Yes.
So can just for my purpose for progressing here, if they don't double the gas tax revenues to the municipalities, I'm assuming I leave it in as it is today. Okay. That's if the motion passed.
Right. Okay, so if we look at attachment 1 on page 30, because we're looking at that piece as well, right? The part-time operator at this point is not included, but we're indicating that all the rest of those would be included.
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor for this one item, and then we'll go back to all of the other items. So for the that would be item 2346. Yes, item 2346, maintenance hole replacement, pending funding, additional funding for the Community Works Fund from the federal government, that this 150,000 be funded from that. Should that not come forward prior to adoption of the budget, then this would be funded from sewer user fees. Okay. Councillor Scott.
Do we know, so say these two projects are funded through gas tax, does that completely negate the need for the raise in the sewer fees, or is it just reduce it?
It just reduces it. So for every $50,000, it reduces it. It reduces it reduce the increase by $9. So if it's $150,000, it would be $27 decrease to the recommended user fee lift here.
And what was the total amount that you proposed, Matt?
$113.
No, Councillor McLean, what was the total amount that you proposed be funded through gas tax?
150.
Oh, okay, so it's just
So
$27.
$27.
27. Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, the other item that he was talking about initially was the chemical storage facility, but that's not actually, that's coming from MFA financing, which will be spread over a number of years and so has less of an impact dollar-wise.
Down the road, yeah.
Yeah. So any other questions or comments on the recommendation on the floor? This is the 150,000 from the pending gas tax funds or community works funds. All right, all those in favor? All right, thank you. So now let's look at page 30 in our package. This is our ongoing 2021 project. So this is basically increasing our base budget to pay for the ongoing maintenance that needs to happen every year. And then the one-time items. The only one that is not included at this point is part-time operator septage receiving Dusty Road. Otherwise, all of those are included in the numbers that are on page or on item 5.2 on page 29. Are there any of those items that you'd like to see pulled? And if not, I'd look for a motion that these be approved and incorporated into the 2021 budget. Moved. Is there a seconder for that? Seconded. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor? Thank you. Moving on to item 5.3 on page 31. Starts with the additional membrane filters of $96,000 and then moves down to the Water Resource Center, ultrafiltration unit, spare VFD, lift station telemetry, maintenance hole replacement, which we've already done a motion on. Sewer outfall consultation and design, 20,000. The 171,000, that's the next item, has already been approved. And then we've got upsizing the main, nope, that's it. Well, wastewater meters, which are the flow meters that we're looking at. Any questions about any of these items? Councillor McLean?
I'm going to make a similar motion for the chemical storage facility to change that to community works funds. So I'd like to do this. I recognize that MFA financing doesn't hit us right away, but it does still add up over time. So I think it's we can get this covered by the community works fund and the increase that we're going to see. So just thinking about the long-term future of this fund, I think this is a really good move, so then we can focus other funds towards other capital improvements within the wastewater.
Director Dillon.
Yes, Your Worship. It's I'm just reviewing the eligibility under the gas tax program or the CWWF fund, and it's not immediately apparent whether a chemical storage building would qualify as an eligible project under that program. It does note wastewater collection systems and or wastewater treatment facilities or systems. separation of combined sewers and or combined sewer overflow control, including real-time control and system optimization, separate stormwater collection systems and or stormwater treatment facilities or systems, and wastewater sludge treatment and management systems. Those are the specific eligibilities under the program. So not readily apparent whether a chemical storage facility would qualify.
Thank you. I like where you're going with this, Councilor McLean, but personally, I wouldn't support this at this time. I know there's huge needs all over the place, road building, all kinds of other projects. And if we look at how much money we have set aside, I would prefer to keep some of these funds for some of the emergency things that may show up during the year. I would prefer, and given rates that we've got with MFA right now, financing rates are under 2%, probably somewhere in that ballpark. Like, it's pretty reasonably priced money at this point. So it allows us to actually spread it over a number of years. So I prefer not to do this with the Community Works Fund. Anybody else? Anybody else?
Just in response to that,
Yeah.
I think with Director Dillon's comment, it's not evident to me either. So I think at this time, I could lay that one aside.
Okay. Would someone like to make a recommendation about the other items on the list? Councilor McLean.
I got one more, then I'm done.
Okay.
Lift station telemetry, that's the SCADA system.
Yes.
Just looking at how much we're trying to take on in the next year, and this not being within our a safety improvement, or and it's something that we've been discussing for several years now. I'd like to see it pushed back a year. So I'd like to make a motion to change the timeline of the SCADA system to 2022 and 2023.
Okay, is there Director Dillon?
Your Worship, in looking at the eligibility for the gas tax program, it would appear that SCADA may qualify under gas tax.
Okay. Does somebody want to second the recommendation that was made? Okay. I'm going to speak against even the recommendation at this point. I agree with you that staff have a lot to do. And this actually is a project that would save them time, because instead of having to go out each day and check each one of the lift stations, they actually can have access remotely. So it will actually save our staff time and oversight. So we pushed it back last year. I mean, it's been on, like you said, it's been on the books for a number of years and it has not moved forward. I think this is actually a staff saving measure. So it actually allows them to work in other areas that they don't have to spend the time driving around all these lift stations everywhere in the winter, etc. Councillor Scott.
Yeah, I agree with you. You know, some of these budget items, it's tough to push through, but I see this one as where there's an ROI on it, and in the long run, we're going to see a savings. We're going to see better allocations of staff resources. Maybe down the road, this will negate the need to hire another staff member for another reason. So yeah, I'd like to see this one go through.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right, so I'd look for a recommendation. Councillor Scott?
I'll move that the items under the 2021 budget asks be accepted.
Okay, so approved and incorporated into the 2021 budget. Thank you. Is there a seconder for that recommendation? Seconded. Any further comments or questions? All those in favor? Thank you. All right, moving on Page 32, this is septage. So we have 3 items, septage reserve paying for all of them. No, not quite all of them. We've got septage reserve, one is all of them, right? The roof replacement is septage reserve as well, correct? Yes, okay. So we've got the septage solids disposal, the septage closure plan, and the roof replacement of the Dusty Road building. Any questions or comments on any of these? No questions? Would someone like to move a recommendation? Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, just the septage closure plan is like $150,000. Is that something that's sort of planned to be spent over a few years? Because right now right now you can't spend any money as far as I'm concerned. We don't have any idea what we're doing, where we're going, how we're, we got nothing. So is this $150,000 that we're just going to set aside, or are they planning on spending it this year?
Okay, staff?
I'm going to say initially set aside, but potentially could be started to be spent on, yes. There is some groundwork that needs to be done prior, and we're intending to do that groundwork.
So the premise here is that some of this money is not only just for the plan, but for the actual closure. Is that correct? Not just the plan?
Yes.
Okay. Councillor Lamb?
No, I'm a little bit comfortable, with that. I mean, if the balance, hopefully we're not going to spend a whole bunch of money on the closure plan, and the leftover monies could go to, to closing. The next thing that bugs me right now is the $28,000 to go onto a 10-year roof or less. But anyways, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? So I'd look for a motion on this one. Councillor McLean?
Yeah, I'll move that the septage budget be forwarded to final approval.
That works. Is there a seconder for that recommendation? Seconded. All those in favor? Thank you. So then there's a final ask from staff that 2 items, the chemical storage unit and the $150,000 for the maintenance holes, be approved by council for pre-approval. So early approval of those 2 projects. So it would be that committee would recommend to council that those be approved prior to budget adoption.
So moved.
So moved. Is there a seconder? Seconded. All right. Any other questions or comments on that? All those in favor? Thank you. Anything else, Mr. Douglas?
Not today.
Not today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. So I'd look for a motion to adjourn. Oh, Councillor Lamb, you have a question?
Oh, yeah. I just want to thank Director Douglas here for the work he's done. And then just, that question that I asked him about the meter, it shows that they're looking into stuff and doing a good job. So, I thanks for that.
Thank you. All right. So I'd look for a motion to adjourn. Moved.